one airdrop where a number of U.S. cargo jets flying low over the area of Mount Sinjar were able to drop about 8,000 meals ready to eat MREs and over 5,000 gallons of water for the Yazidis who have been trapped there by ISIL. That's been the only airdrop so far, but the U.S. says it does have stocks of water and other supplies for emergency situations within the region that it can bring over if needed.
Now, President Obama has said there's a possibility of military intervention. What options are available?
Well, what the president authorized the Department of Defense to do was to strike if and when a decision was made that any of ISIL's moves threatening either U.S. personnel or assets in that area. So during the humanitarian airdrop where the food and water was given to the Yazidis, the cargo jets were escorted by U.S. fighter jets, and then we got word not long ago that 2 U.S. fighter jets dropped precision-guided bombs on a ISIL artillery position outside of Erbil. Erbil is a northern city where the U.S. does have a joint operations center and some diplomatic personnel, and this artillery position was apparently firing on Kurdish forces protecting Erbil. U.S. military planners made the decision it was enough of a threat, and they sent in the jets to bomb that position. The U.S. has said before this that there was no guarantee that the military option would be used, but all this now raises the stakes, because the other consideration to make is that the Yazidis who are stuck and trapped essentially on Mount Sinjar by the ISIL forces, while they do have some food and some water now, those supplies will eventually run out. What the president has also done is authorized the military to use airstrikes to break the siege and allow them passage out. But how that's going to happen, how you use only airstrikes to create a path for the Yazidis to get out of that area is tricky, because ISIL is a very capable force. They've surprised planners before, and the U.S. does not want to underestimate them again.
And Jeff, you mentioned airstrikes alone are a tricky proposition. Are there any plans to send in U.S. troops?
The U.S. does have some troops on the ground in Iraq right now. They have a joint operations center in Erbil with about 40 to 45 commandos. There's also one with about 90 commandos in Baghdad, as well as assessment teams that were sent there to look at the situation, assess what type of help the Iraqi forces might need, and what type of threat ISIL posed to Baghdad and the surrounding areas. The thing that the Pentagon has made clear, that the White House has made clear, is that there will be no boots on the ground. What they mean by that is that there's no intention for U.S. troops, combat troops, to actually engage with ISIL. However, the Pentagon and the White House now has made clear that they will use airstrikes, they will use air power to help alleviate some of the pressure perhaps on Erbil, and also to break the siege of the Yazidis and help them perhaps get away from the ISIL forces that are threatening them. This, of course, though, raises the stakes, because now it's not just a one-time thing. It becomes a longer-term commitment, and what we have yet to hear exactly from U.S. officials is how they're going to game plan this going forward, how they see this playing out beyond the initial humanitarian relief and now the initial airstrikes.
Well, thank you very much. I've been speaking with the Voice of America's Jeff Selden, and he is the Pentagon correspondent. Now, in other news, after 3 days of a truce which was so peaceful that it appeared as though it would be extended, Israel has resumed airstrikes in Gaza after Palestinian militants fired rockets this morning. The Israeli army called the renewed rocket attacks unacceptable, intolerable, and short-sighted. Palestinian militant group Hamas, which dominates Gaza, earlier rejected any extension of the truce, saying Israel had failed to meet its demands. Over 1,900 lives have been claimed in 4 weeks of fighting in Gaza.
Israeli troops were deployed near the Israel-Gaza border early this morning as an Egyptian-mediated 72-hour ceasefire was set to expire. Mediators worked against the clock to extend a truce between Israel and Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip as the 3-day ceasefire entered its final hours. Sadly, the truce came to a halt. Israeli boarders took positions along the border, pointing guns and observing movement through binoculars, and then launched new airstrikes across the Gaza Strip in response to Palestinian rockets. A mortar fired from Gaza, which landed near an Israeli community this morning, wounded 2 Israelis who were evacuated to hospital with shrapnel wounds. One person was slightly wounded and another moderately, emergency services added. Footage showed a soldier with a foot injury and a civilian lying on a stretcher at the scene. Tamir Eden, the head of Negev Regional Council, called on the Israeli government to do whatever it needs to restore calm.
Unfortunately, someone wounded here very badly, and we must see he was on the ground, not in this car, and that's what saved his life. The situation cannot continue like this. We're not going to agree to these missiles that are falling on our head. I asking the government to do whatever they could to bring us back our life. We want to live in quiet, we want to live in peace, not more than this.
A video from Al-Quds Brigade, a military wing of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, claims to show rockets being fired from Gaza. Israel said they were responding to Palestinian rockets fired after Egyptian-mediated talks failed to extend a 72-hour truce in the month-long war. It launched airstrikes across the Gaza Strip.
Now, it's no secret that Malaysia Airlines has had an ill spate of luck recently, with one of its airlines disappearing and the other being shot down. The 2 incidents have triggered concerns about the airline's future, and as a result, Malaysia's state investment firm Khazanah Nasional has proposed a complete overhaul of the troubled national carrier. Khazanah wants to buy the shares it does not already own in Malaysia Airlines and delist the carrier. Khazanah, which currently owns 69.4% of the airline, has offered to pay 0.27 ringgit per share for the remaining stock, and that's a 12.5 premium to the closing price yesterday. Trading in shares in Malaysia Airlines was suspended today ahead of the announcement, and the Malaysian Prime Minister, Najib Razak, said he agreed with the state's fund's decision. Now, thankfully, progress has been made in Afghanistan politics as a deal to form a united government in the country has been signed. The agreement was announced by the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, and it's a big step considering the fact that the presidential rivals Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah have been feuding over the result of the June elections. It's not yet clear what the government structure will be under the power-sharing deal, but the presidential rivals agreed to a vote audit during Mr. Kerry's last visit, and both contenders say they would abide by the result. All 8 million ballots are being reviewed in an attempt to resolve the dispute over the result of the 14th of June second round preliminary results announced by Afghani election officials, and that gave Mr. Ghani 56.44% of the votes, with Mr. Abdullah gaining 43.45%. But they accuse each other of electoral fraud.
This audit is not about winning and losing. It's about achieving the credible result that the people of Afghanistan demand and deserve. The audit is only one part of the challenge. Equally important, if not more important, will be the actions of these 2 candidates in the days ahead.
From now on, I hope that the people of Afghanistan will be more hopeful, will have much better sense of certainty. Now that we have gone beyond talking about an agreement, a framework, but rather started stepping on the road towards formation of national unity government, whatever the outcome of the audit process was.
We hope that by end of August, the results of the audit will be completed and that the next president of Afghanistan will be inaugurated, that Afghanistan takes its rightful place again in the community of nations, and we bring an end to the sense of uncertainty.
Well, after the break on The World Today, we shift our attention to Africa's stories, and the World Health Organization declares the spread of the Ebola virus an international health emergency. We'll have details for you shortly. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching The World Today on Channels Television. It's time to look at our Africa stories, and we start right here in Nigeria. Unfortunately, the federal government has said that 2 more Nigerians have been confirmed to have contracted the Ebola virus disease. Health experts say that case fatality for Nigeria is 28.6, while a total of 139 contacts have been put under surveillance. The health minister, Professor Onyebuchi Chukwu, is asking members of the public to disregard messages making the rounds that bathing with salt water solution is a cure for the virus. The minister's comments are coming after broadcasts of bathing with salt water and putting salt in water meant for consumption as a preventive measure against Ebola went viral in the last 24 hours. The World Health Organization says the Ebola virus has led to the loss of an estimated 932 lives across 4 West African countries and was introduced to Nigeria by Mr. Patrick Sawyer, who is a Liberian American. Ebola has no known vaccine or treatment, but could be prevented by maintaining a high level of personal hygiene and avoiding bodily fluid of its victims. Now, we're still talking about the Ebola virus, and in order to contain the rate at which it spreads in West Africa, the World Health Organization, that's WHO, has declared the spread of the virus an international health emergency. WHO officials said a coordinated international response was essential to stop and reverse the spread of the virus. The announcement came after experts convened a 2-day emergency meeting in Switzerland, and more than 160 people have died from the virus in West Africa alone this year.
The declaration of a public health emergency of international concern alerts the world to the need for high vigilance for possible cases of Ebola virus disease, but by no means implies that all countries, or even many countries, will see Ebola cases. Only a small part of the African continent is currently affected. Above all, the committee's conclusions and my decisions are a clear call for international solidarity. Countries affected to date simply do not have the capacity to manage an outbreak of this size and complexity on their own.
It is an infectious disease which can be contained. Let me underscore that. This is an infectious disease which can be contained. It is not mysterious. This is something which can be stopped. To do that, we know some of the critical actions that have to be done. We have to basically stop the chain of transmission, and this depends on identifying everybody who has an Ebola infection and making sure that they receive the right treatment and making sure that we stop the chain of transmission. The second thing, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about this, but the second thing is awareness. We really have to break through so that people understand that this is not a mysterious disease and that there are steps that can be taken.
Now we go from health to legal matters. While giving his closing remarks, Oscar Pistorius' lawyer has accused prosecutors of manipulating facts to discredit the South African athlete. Barry Rue believes the athlete should have faced a lesser charge of culpable homicide over the shooting of his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp. Mr. Pistorius denies prosecution claims that he deliberately shot Ms. Steenkamp, but Barry Rue conceded that he should be found guilty of carelessness for discharging a firearm in a restaurant.
Oscar Pistorius arrived at Pretoria's High Court today as his defense team prepared to wrap up their closing argument in the murder trial of the South African Olympic and Paralympic athlete, after which the judge will retire to consider her verdict.
1.5 meters from the door.
The 27-year-old double amputee, Pistorius, once a national icon for reaching the pinnacle of sport, is accused of murdering his law graduate and model girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp, at his home in Pretoria on Valentine's Day last year. Since the trial opened in early March, State Prosecutor Jerry Nell has portrayed Pistorius as a gun-obsessed hothead who deliberately shot 29-year-old Steenkamp 4 times through a locked toilet door where she was taking refuge after a heated argument. The defense says Pistorius, nicknamed the Blade Runner because of his high-stake prosthetics, was a vulnerable and caring boyfriend who killed Steenkamp by accident after mistaking her for an intruder hiding behind the door.
Now you're standing at the door.
On Thursday, Nell said Pistorius had told a snowball of lies and called on Judge Thokozile Masipa to convict the track star of intentional murder, a crime which could land him with a life sentence. A potential lesser charge of culpable homicide could carry a sentence of 15 years.
Burn over many years.
Lead defense attorney Barry Roos began his closing statement by accusing the state of deliberately avoiding calling witnesses whose evidence would have damaged their case. He will conclude his final arguments on Friday, after which Judge Masipa, who has more than 4,000 pages of evidence to review, will retire to consider her verdict.
The hypothalamus. He explains the amygdala. He explains.
There is no jury, and so the verdict hinges on whether Masipa, only the second black woman to be appointed a High Court judge, believes Pistorius' verdict of events. Steenkamp's dramatic death has shattered the image of Pistorius as an embodiment of triumph over adversity for both his Paralympic victories and his success against able-bodied athletes at the 2012 London Olympics.
Now, unfortunately, the cockpit voice recorder from the Air Algerie flight, which crashed in Mali back in July, is damaged and unintelligible. French investigators say the team was unable to extract information from one of the 2 black boxes found in the wreckage. Flight AH5017 went down en route to Algeria near the Malian town of Gossi, killing all 118 people on board. France took a leading role in the investigation after 54 of its citizens were killed in the crash. French officials also believe that bad weather was the likely cause of the crash on the 24th of July, but have not ruled out other possible explanations. Now it's Friday, so let's turn our attention to the lighter side of life. Well, yesterday there was a huge attraction in New York as a new figure of pop star Selena Gomez was unveiled. Now, she was dressed in a white blouse and leather pants, and the Gomez replica took a team of 24 months to create. The attraction's Hollywood and DC locations also house Gomez figures. During the debut, fans were able to get up close and personal with the likeness, which Pigeon said is all a part of the experience. The statue will be housed in the Music Zone section alongside replicas of Lady Gaga, Justin Timberlake, and others.
So this is the most current one. This is the most updated. This is what Selena looks like now. She's wearing, we have her in an outfit that she wore in her concert last year. So it's really exciting for our guests to be able to see what she looks like now. Yeah, at Madame Tussauds New York, all the Madame Tussauds, there are no ropes, there are no barriers. We love for our guests to come and get close, get the details, interact with their favorite celebrities. You can kiss your favorite celebrity if you like. We really do encourage that experience for you to come and enjoy your celebrity experience that you wouldn't be able to have otherwise.
Well, that's it on The World Today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Cynthia Are. Up next is Sports News.